Okay, we are going to implement a notes taking app, and this is just a logic and the Tailwind CSS implementation with the TypeScript. Here is the code. I opened that code in the Visual Studio, the project I created with Word version 3.2.4, and this app is not created with the Create React app. This is a create new note, and once we click the input field is on focused, it will expand the description box, and once we click on a save, it will return this note. And this is the logic I implemented so far, and once done, it will shrink back. These are the cards, and the logic you will implement, it will delete them, and once you click back, it will add a new note. This top navigation bar is just grabbed from the Tailwind Components website, and I didn't implement the CSS of it. I just grabbed the component and implemented it as it is. If you come into my components, here I have a card, and I tried a quite different type of CSS, but at the end I'm using the postcard 3 and create note card. These are the two components that I'm going to use into today's tutorial. Coming downwards, I have a Tailwind layout component. The Tailwind layout component is simple, pure layout, and I just remove this header, and I included the top nav component. This top nav component is somehow into my navigations folder. I have a nav folder into my components, and there I have a top nav component. So in this top nav component, this is a plain component grabbed from the Tailwind Component CSS library website. So I'm not going into the details of this because we are not going to use this component into our project. We just added it to look our UI better. So just neglect that and come back to the main components which we are focusing in the app.tsx file. Here, if you view, we have a create note card, postcard 3, and the Tailwind layout. In the Tailwind layout, the title is empty, and a create note card, we added a create note card component, and later on into a div we manually added the postcard 3 components. Later on we are actually mapping a list into that. So for the code repository, I added into my GitHub, and into the GitHub I added this into my new repo that I just created. If you go into my repositories, this is my profile, and into my repositories I created the notes taking app. So if you are want to start this, you can check out to the branch starter. I'm creating all this code which I'm going to start is from the starter branch. So let's try to implement the logic into one of these cards. Let's move to the postcard, and for now I just use the render and set render component, and if it is not render, I'm returning an empty component, otherwise I'm returning this. Obviously this is due to the close button implement logic, and in the close button here I have a close button, and let's try to find out. Yes, this is MD close icon, and in this button on click I just implement the set render into false, and that's how it is removing the components like this. So if you do this, obviously we are not going to do this into our later on project. So where we are going to start, let's move into the app.tsx and create a new type of the node, and it's a node type, and this node type is a app ID, which is a number or a string. You can use a string if you are going to use an UUID, or you can use a number if you are implementing a maximum auto increment number. Let's say you are going to use some kind of backend, which we are not going to use into this project. So after that, we have a title, and this title could be empty. I assume this title could be empty, so let's call it a string. And after that, we have a node text, and this must be something into the node text. And after that, finally, we have a created at, which is a type could be empty, and which is a type of date. And once we are done, we can create a new list, and let's say const my nodes list, and let's this would be of type of node type, and we are implementing an array of these. So because we are going to implement an array, we need to create an array here like this. So into an array, we are going to create multiple objects of nodes type, and at least I need to provide the ID, which is a 1, and the next one I need to provide the node text, which is something like any nodes type. Let's assume we are going to create this, and the ID title is missing the following parameter of nodes type. Okay, so let's assume we are creating an array of this. Let's neglect that, and ID2 and node text is this is some second node, and so on and so forth. Let's assume we have these kind of things, any node, and the ID would be 3. Okay, so let's render this here, and after that, let's create the nodes, my nodes list, this one, my nodes list dot map, and first of all is val and the key, and after that let's render that into a function, and in that function let's create a div and provide a key with the key, and inside this div let's render the postcard 3. Okay, so once you are done rendering, let's see how it looks into our app. No, it is not rendered, and let's say we want to return this here, and once we return this, yes, now we are seeing 1, 2, and 3 more things. Okay, so we need to provide a new value. Let's say we need to provide a node is equal to val, and because we don't have the property name node in our postcard 3, we need to create this prop into our postcard 3. Okay, let's move to the node postcard 3, and we have a prop. Here we are accepting a prop of type node, and the node type should be the same. We are having this node type, And I know it is a bad practice to copy the types everywhere, but let's assume it is as it is. So let's make it a node type, node, and node type, and let's make it neglectable. And into the props, let's destructure it with the node, and let's assume if we have a node here, because we have a title, let's assume we have let's first of all make it a React fragment, and inside this React fragment let's check if the node, and then render this thing. Let's check if there is a node, then node text, else just render the string. Okay, so or in other words, let's wrap this into backticks. So let's save this and check what it happens. Okay, it's still the same. Let's refresh the page, and okay, it still have the same text. Let's see what wrong we have here. If we have a node text, let's say, and then write the node text, else just render the string, and let's try to refresh the page. It is still rendering it. Okay, so let's try to print out node and node ID. Let's see if we can find out this one into our no, we don't have it in here. Let's save it, this one as well, and yes, now we have this. Actually, we didn't save this app.tsx files, that's why it was having the issue. Okay, so we have the text. What if we don't have the title? So if we don't have a title, we can simply render, let's assume we don't have a node type, and if not return empty. Okay, so the first three would not be rendered. Cool, so we can similarly delete this one as well. Once everything is done, let's re-render the component. Now we need to check if there is a title, and here we are rendering the title. So if we have a, let's grab this whole component into a React, and this and this. Inside this, we need to check if node.title, then node.no. Okay, so what we need to do is node.title and yeah, so here we need to simply render the node.title. So once it's done, we don't see our title anymore. But if we add a new value here. Let's see, we added one more with the title, and this is a dummy title. Then we see the title here like this. So that's how we are adding values into this. So now let's handle the date component here. With the date, we need to do the same. If we have a date, we render the date, otherwise we don't. Okay, so let's grab this into this one and say if we have note dot created at, and then we are going to render this, otherwise, and we are providing a note dot created at dot get excuse me get date. Cool. So we are done here, and the orientation is wrong. Otherwise, let's do this. Okay, so if there is a date, let's remove it from here and do it note dot created at, otherwise date dot now dot to string. I don't know if that works. No. Let's see how we formatted that into our create node card. Here we handle this thing very well, I guess. Yes, new date. We just added a new date. Cool. So we can do that, I guess. New date dot cat date, right? So I was just getting the one. Okay, let's Google how to get let's see what it say to this. Let's see if that works. Yes, it works pretty well. Cool. So I think we need to replace this from here as well. Cool. So now we have a date formatted. If there is a date, we provide the date. If there's not the date, we just provide the rendering date. And we also took care of the handle, and now we need to remove the read more kind of thing. Okay, so we don't need that anymore. And let's just remove this component here. The div, how long that div goes, I think there. So once we are here, we just want to say false. In the false, we just disable the rendering of that. Cool. And just remove the ID. This one. Now let's see. Cool. So now we have our notes card ready. We can move it to our create notes card. so that it will return a value. Before doing this, let's create a useState value from our notes list const notes list set notes list and react.useState, and inside this useState we putting my notes list. Cool. So we directly imported this, so we can use this one, and we need to provide cannot find the name useState and import from React, and we need to render this notes list rather than so we are going to render this notes list instead of my notes list, and the value should be the same. Cool. And we can safely remove these cards. So we are good to do this, right? We can refresh. As you can see, it is not re-rendering the grids, so we don't want that. But we refresh, we will not focus on that. So what we need to do is now we need to create another function which will handle the submit. So let's create a function which will handle submit. This will take a node of type notes type, and what it will do, it will set notes list, and it will add the notes list, and it will add a new note into this. So this is how it will handle the submit function. And into create note card, we need to provide a handle on submit function, and we will handle submit. So in the on submit, we need to create this prop into our this prop on submit, and this would be a function which would be the ID is must. Let's change this. ID is must, title and other things are unnecessary. So on submit, we are taking a note of type notes type, and we are returning void. So this would be the signature. In that signature, let's destructure on submit, and where we are going to do this, handle submit. Here we have a function which will be when we click on the save, prepare and submit. Let's go there, and inside this alert dialog box, let's on submit and pass this value. Okay, and let's see how it works. And let's create a new title, and this is trying to create a note, and let's try to save this. And this is new title. The ID is trying to create a note. So this is happening. We are now able to create any notes we want and save it. Now we have this note available here. Now we need to properly delete this notes from the list and re-render the list component. How are we gonna do this? We are going to create on delete event from our postcard 3. In that prop we need on delete event, and this must be a type of let's say it take an ID which is a number, and the return type would be a void, and we are going to create on delete event here, and in that on delete let's say when we click on the close button, this is a close button, instead of set render is equal to false, we are going to call on delete and note.id. So that's how we're providing this. Now we have a bug here. We need to provide on delete function here, which must be a function which will handle delete, and it will take an ID of number, and it will take care of the deletion, and we can provide the handle delete function here like this. So in this function what we're going to do is we are simply fetching an array and deleting that. If we came into the Stack Overflow question, we have something like this. So let's try to mimic this here, and instead of my array we are going to take the nodes list, and inside the key cannot find the name key, we need index of ID. No, we can't do that because we have an array. We have something like this, so let's try this one, or you can utilize the filter. So I like this filter option. So this filter actually says that grab everything which is not equal to this ID. So this list would be every item in the list which do not match with this ID, and we can set nodes list with this new list. So that's also far for the deletion, but we don't have a suitable create ID function in our nodes card. We need to somehow handle this problem here. We can tackle this by changing this value from number to string, and with that string we can use the UUID package. We have bunch of different possible options, just like UUID version 4. We can install this like this command. So if we go to the command prompt and just paste this command, it will install the UUID version 4 for us, and we can use that with the this is a validating if it's a UUID, and let's see how to create a UUID. And you can create UUIDs to do simply call the UUID function. So we can import the UUID from the UUID version 4 like this, and let's see, we can call this here, and when we are creating, let's change this to string, and inside the string let's change this one to UUID, and once everything is done here, we need to go back to our apps.tsx, and inside here we need to change this on some met. Instead of ID number, we need to handle this with the string, and we need to match this string. We need to change the ID from number to string here as well, and now everything should be changed accordingly, I guess. We need to take care of that inside here. Now you see the problem of duplicating the code everywhere. We should create this instance once and reuse that everywhere. So yeah, here the string should be available, and yeah, pretty much in this component, a lot of things to change here and everywhere. ID number, let's break this, CLS, and npm run dev again. There's node postcard 3, and in that postcard 3, yes, we change this ID to string and on delete ID to string. So we are mimicking, we are returning the ID. Here we need to take care of the ID. This is just a TypeScript problem. We need to refresh the TypeScript, and the condition will always return true since the type number and string have no overlap. So okay, let's try this. Because we have this one here, right? So let's empty this one for now, and type of nodes, node type, and let's have this ID 1, title, dummy, and no text, something useful or not, created at, new date, like this. Let's see what we got there. We are unable to render this. To remove this error, we just simply need to change this forcefully as node type for array, and does that make any change? Let's stop this server and npm run dev again. Meanwhile, let's see if we would be able to render this component again. If we look into the console, it looks like the problem is with the UUID 4. Okay, so we need to tackle this something, right? Let's create a node, and inside this create node, where we are actually creating over this one UUID. Let's replace this with something date dot now dot to string. Okay, so let's see if this actually solves a problem or not. Yes, it re-renders the component. And let's test this node and a new one, and let's try to add a node. Yes, this actually added. And if we try to delete, yes, this is deleted. Cool. So this is new node, and this one is setting, and we try to save this, and we can add, and if we try to delete, it will actually delete the item. So if we actually wanted to see, we can do one more thing. Let's just JSON.stringify the nodes list. Okay, so this way we can see this. Now this is an empty, and we add a new node. This is added into our node, and this is another node, and we add this one here. And if we delete the first one, now we have only one node here, and now if we delete this one, this is actually an empty array. So that's all for today's tutorial. We can comment out this one and refresh the page. Okay, so we have some problem. Okay, we can just remove this, and we got this. Okay, so that's all for today's tutorial. If you wanted to learn more about that, just follow my channel, and if you have suggestion or some more tutorials you want me to add up, and just like I'm planning to add a backend database or something, ZooStand or Redux, if you wanted some tutorial about it, just leave a comment, and I will see if I can make that video. See